Amazon S3 is the world's most popular cloud storage service. Full stop. S3 is a durable, highly available object storage that is absolutely perfect for storing files on the cheap. But hold up a second. S3 may be awesome as a storage layer for a data lake, but it is decidedly not awesome as a storage layer for a user-facing application where you need access to the freshest data with low latency over a highly concurrent set of users. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a really bad UX. Fortunately, there's Tinybird and the Amazon S3 connector. The S3 connector makes it super simple to sync data from S3 files into Tinybird, where you can then query it and shape it with SQL, and then publish your transformations as high concurrency, low latency APIs that power your app dev. In this screencast, I'll show you how to sync files from S3 into Tinybird using the S3 connector in both the Tinybird UI and the CLI. Let's go. Okay, so I have set up this demo S3 bucket called Tinybird Test1, and I've added a single CSV file to it containing about 1 million rows of historic stock price data. Now let's get this data into Tinybird. And I feel like I always start in the UI, so I'm going to show the CLI some love and we'll start there. So let's start by creating an S3 connection. And again, the prerequisite here is that you've created a Tinybird workspace, you've authenticated to it, and you've initialized a Tinybird project with the CLI. To create a connection to S3, just type tb connection create S3. And when prompted, go ahead and supply an AWS access key with S3 read permissions, the access secret, the region of your S3 bucket, and optionally a connection name. Now, assuming your access key checks out, you'll see that the connection was created successfully. Then to create a data source from a file in S3, you want to first create a .data source file in the data sources directory of your Tinybird data project. Now, to simplify this screencast, I'm going to copy a schema that already matches the sample file I have in my S3 bucket. And if you are creating a data source in this way, you'll obviously want to make sure that your columns and data types match your data source file. Now, to make this an S3 data source, you're going to add 5 lines to the bottom of the schema. First, we're going to set the import service to S3, and then set the import connection name to the connection name that you defined in the prior step. Next, you're going to set the import bucket URI with a valid S3 path expression. This looks like S3 : / your bucket name, and then some pattern you want to match. For example, you could use star.csv to append all CSV files in the bucket to this data source, or you could use a specific file name. You can actually even use a regular expression here. Just keep in mind that any file on your bucket that matches this path expression will be appended to this data source. Once you've set the URI, set the import strategy, in this case append, and the import schedule, either auto, which will sync on a schedule, or on demand, which will sync when you first push the data source to Tinybird, and then anytime you manually trigger a sync job thereafter. Note that if you select auto, the rate at which the file syncs will be based on your plan. For more information on that, check out the docs. I've linked to them below. And when that's all done, go ahead and save your data source file and push it to the server with tbpush and the data source file path. If your schema configs checks out, you'll get a confirmation message. If you want to see the initial sync job or any subsequent job for that matter, you can use tbjobls to see all the jobs, and then grab the job ID that you want and use tbjobdetails and that job ID to see the details of that sync job. And just to demonstrate that the data source was actually successfully created from that file in S3, let's just go ahead and request some data from the data source with tbsql, and then I'm going to write out this simple query. And there you go. We got some results. Now, I'm going to delete these resources real quick so that we can run this back in the Tinybird UI. So let me just remove the data source and the connection. Okay, so now we're in the UI, and just like any other Tinybird data source, you're going to start by clicking Add Data Source or using the P hotkey. Then select Amazon S3. So go ahead and supply your credentials, including your access key, access secret, and region. And then optionally give your connection a name and click Next. And then you're going to need to supply that URI path expression. And just for fun, I'm going to use a regex pattern here that matches the sample file that I have in my bucket. And then when you click Preview, you'll see which objects in your bucket match that path expression. These are the files that will be ingested into this data source. And keep in mind that for the S3 connector, Tinybird supports CSV, NDJSON, and Parquet files. So go ahead and click Next, and then select your ingest frequency, again, auto or on demand, and then you'll be able to update your data source details, give it a name, a description if you'd like, and then click Create Data Source. With that, your data source is created. You can create a pipe, write some SQL, parameterize that SQL, and then publish it as a dynamic, secure, real-time API that serves the data most recently synced from your S3 bucket. And that's all there is to it. Now, if you have any questions about the Tinybird S3 connector or about Tinybird in general, please join our Slack community. I've linked to it below. You can also check out the documentation for the S3 connector, again, in the YouTube description below. Cheers.